We have to do a voice vote on that though, right, Ryan?
Sure, I think it's just a good, I think it's practice, and I can break down, I don't have the roll, make the roll sheet.
Okay.
I think, you know, for the council,
Well,
policy to adopt something.
yeah, and I think if it's unanimous, you can, you know, unless, if they're under discussion, or if there is, I'll tell you what, if there is somebody who's not voting for it, then we'll make a note of it. If it's unanimous, we'll just say it's unanimous, okay. All right, so, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Discussion with City Auditor Bellamy Schmidt on accessing CPC funds when the time comes. Could you come on in and join us so that we can have a discussion about that? And the reason we're wondering is because we want to know, I know that the gentleman from the state did talk to us about it, but I'm not sure, he wasn't quite clear to be able to explain to us how we would be able to hire someone, if we as a committee would hire someone, or if it goes through, if you're gonna set up an account for those funds, and how does that all work?
You are definitely familiar with fund accounting because that's how the city operates. But basically, actually, we already have set up a fund for
Make sure you're talking to
CPA activity, which is essentially a separate set of books where we can put the revenues that come in and we can put the charges that come in. So that fund exists. The tax collector's office knows to take any revenues that are collected for CPA and put them in that fund, Fund 3380. So now it's up to you you can spend the money in that fund any way you want. If you want to actually hire someone, there's an account there for personal services. That person would be a city employee. But I didn't know you wanted to hire anybody. That's kind of new to me.
Oh, yeah,
Staff member.
Yeah, well, no, yes, we do need, we have our administrative assistant right now who's working without getting paid until we can access funds. So,
Well,
that's for one thing, and then we do need a staff person to help us with our projects. Eventually, that's gonna be.
But I don't see any reason why you can't add someone to the payroll charge to this fund. That's been done with some of the other grant funds that we have, as you know. So I don't see a problem with that.
But what kind of paperwork do we need to be able to do that? Do we need warrant? Do we need to fill out a
Well,
warrant?
Now you're getting into the realm of expenses as opposed to personnel.
Well, personnel, how do we
How would we hire someone? That's
Yes.
a good question.
Yeah.
See, I hadn't anticipated this question either, so I
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
really ready for that one.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you're gonna do the selection. It's not really it's not something you want the city to do for you. You would wanna identify that person and then just tell the personnel department to add them to the payroll. You don't have to follow any particular pay ordinances for the city, so I think you're free to do whatever you want from that standpoint, but you do need to coordinate the actual hiring with the personnel
department.
because, there's paperwork and forms and bureaucracy and all that kind of stuff. If it's a regular, either full-time or part-time job.
Okay.
For expenses, you need to follow the normal purchasing practice for the city, so you'll have to have purchase orders issued to the vendor, and then when you get an approved invoice, turn it into purchasing, and they will send it to the auditor's office, who will put it on a warrant. I've talked to purchasing, and they're willing to prepare the PO for you.
Okay.
And I suggest that probably you ought to designate one person to be the liaison with the purchasing office to do all the requisitions for buying things.
Okay.
That will probably make it easier because, there's certain lingo you have to know and just practices. You'll have to follow state laws for purchasing, which basically say over $10,000, you have to go out for 3 bids, but I think that's pretty, you'd probably want to do that anyway, that's
I don't
just
think
good
we will
business
be too
practice.
much.
Well, for the under 10,000, is there a micro purchase limit for like a credit card use to go without the warranted purchaser?
What do you mean by credit card use?
Is there a government purchase card linked to our funding,
No,
our fund
no,
account?
no, purchase credit cards are a very sensitive subject right now in the city, so, so no, we, you know, you wanna order some stationery, we'll issue a purchase order and, you know,
Okay.
come from, we get it from WB Mason on your behalf, or otherwise.
Excuse me for interrupting, would you then take the $25 of fax paper,
And we'll charge it to your fund, to your,
charge it to our fund, and
We-
you would draw down $25?
right, we draw,
and give us a-
exactly. When we issue the warrant, the bills would be a drawdown to your fund, correct?
Okay, so you would keep track of that?
Our system, we've got a computer system that keeps track of all that and can give you reports, you know, monthly, you know, you want a report on where you stand, you know, somebody can run a report for you, it's pretty easy.
That'd be great.
Great, that'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the Muni, I really do like the Muni system from that standpoint, it really can give you good data.
Just
Yes,
the biggest thing, Bellamy, I think, well, in my opinion, one of the biggest things we face now is the hiring of an administrative assistant, number one, and number two, when the applications come in, and we need somebody who knows in detail, like Roberta, for example, the minutia of detail to make sure your application to do over a 3-family house, for example, meets all the state requirements and so on and so forth. At least that's what I'm looking at, someone to hire with that sense of expertise and to follow up that the renovations that you said you did, you actually did. And the receipts of a painter or a plumber or whatever that may be, that came into the cost of, that we get with the money we gave you, you can justify that.
is that person a full-time employee, or are you talking about having a consultant who would do that for you?
It'd be a part-time
Yeah,
employee.
okay,
The committee will have approximately $25,000 a year to spend on administrative costs. That includes staffing and incidental
right.
costs, so.
So you're talking about probably several part-time people, you know, one more administrative, one more project-specific.
I would say,
$25,000 a year is probably a half-time person who would both manage, I think, the, working with with your office, as well as overseeing the grants to ensure that the grants are being carried out correctly, working with applicants to ensure that they understand the process. So all of that would fall under that person's
And where are you
part-time.
gonna house this person?
well, we don't know if it may be somebody who already works for the city, and if not, then we'll have to
Yeah.
worry about,
Somebody who
Where
works
they would-
part-time for the city and
That's
would do this
right.
part-time? That'd be kinda cool
well, if,
for somebody.
we'll
Might be a
see.
nice opportunity for somebody.
right.
It's to be determined, I think, where the
Yep.
best place to house them is.
And, you know, I think we need to keep our administrative assistant too, and so that we would just have the two. I don't think we would want, or, you know, I don't see that in the future that we would want more than that at this
Right.
point in time,
No, that
unless
makes
we
sense.
get, you know, lots of money, which I don't think we will, and have loads of projects, which would be great, but.
One step at a time.
Yes,
Let's get the first one
exactly.
going.
Exactly, right.
Take a baby
Right.
step.
Exactly, so, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, did I hear you correctly that we have funds in an account?
No, we have a fund set up, but no money in it. We have the bank account ready to accept your generous donations. But nothing's in there yet. No, there's no money in there yet, no. But the mechanics have been set up for you, so
When do you think that, I mean, the tax bills will go out April 1st?
that's the plan.
We hope.
Cross your fingers.
Cross our fingers.
Cross your fingers.
And if they do go out on April 1st, when do you think the funds will start to accumulate into the,
Well, people are pretty good about paying tax bills
Right.
immediately after they get them.
Right.
And there's usually a steady stream downstairs when that happens.
right?
Plus you have all the banks who are people with mortgages, and the banks
Yes.
pay as well, so.
So you would you say like in 3 weeks after April 1st? or-
You'll have a stream of money, yes, I don't know how big it'll be, but I would say by the end of April, probably the banks will have paid. And that should be the big chunk.
Okay,
Because most people do have mortgages and, taxes and escrow.
so by the end of April,
So by the end of April,
okay,
Have a fund with some funds.
yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, we're discussing with Bellamy how we're gonna access our funds, so I don't know if you have any questions about that, or, I guess, I was just gonna say, he said that everything's pretty much in place at the present time to start accepting funds when it's ready.
But Bellamy, just to, again, to make it clear, whatever we seek to buy, that's, when we have money, whether we owe Elaine money for a recorder that she purchased out of her own pocket,
Oh, yeah,
she would go to the city purchasing agent with a receipt and say, look,
Yes.
this cost me $85.
There's a form for reimbursement of expenses that she
That's
would
our-
fill out, and then we'd put it through the process, and a check would be sent to her, yes.
Okay, okay. So,
Yeah, so we can do that too, as well as, if she wants to buy a recorder, she goes and says, I want to place an order for a recorder, and they would help her put together a requisition to get that, and
okay, so we're just in a unique period of time when we not only don't have any money, but we don't really have our need identified yet.
Yeah, right, correct.
Mechanically
But
speaking.
you're being anticipatory
Right.
and trying to figure it out beforehand, as opposed to, all of a sudden you want to buy something, and what do I do? So you're doing the right thing.
Right, it would be the purchasing agent, purchasing department
Yeah.
would be our first
Right,
order of business.
correct.
And then it would just flow from there. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And that would, in terms of hiring, again, we would go to the personnel department of the city of Holyoke and say, we're gonna hire thus and such
Susie Jones,
for 10 hours a month for,
and here's the rate, and here's when the start date, and
do they have the, excuse me interrupting, do they have the power to say, look, no, it doesn't meet this state requirement, or the city requires thus and such? Can they say, no, you can't hire that person because of this, that, or the other thing? Or is it really upon us to select the people or the person that we think
the
is
only
the
thing
best?
I don't know is whether, because it's a city position, it has to be posted before you hire. You're posted for other candidates. That's the only law that I can think of that you might have to honor.
Is it? I'm sorry.
Well, if you're gonna hire someone, you have to post it publicly.
Oh, yes,
So,
yes, yes. Yeah, we
that's
have to
the
post
one
it,
law
yeah.
that you would have
Yes.
to follow.
Yes.
When you decide, here's the job description we're gonna hire for, you have to, post it
Yes.
so that people can apply.
Elaine,
And you're familiar with that.
Daphne, do you have questions? Why don't you come up here and join us? Yeah.
I just remember with talking to Stuart certain restrictions. Money to sort of offset,
Right,
expenses.
exactly.
That gets tricky in terms of. So I would just
Yeah.
call him and get.
Well, there's two things there that, yes, that person would have to work outside of their city. In other words, if they worked 8 hours for the city, they'd have to work an additional 2 hours for us. They would be outside of their, we can't pay them for
Right.
their
Can't
city
double dip.
time. And the other thing too is if, say it's a community development office, for some reason, whoever's gonna be applying for a project, we can't hire somebody from their department if they're gonna be doing projects. So we have to be careful of that conflict.
then,
You have to
Yeah.
avoid.
Get like something written down in terms of various.
Okay.
Bellamy, excuse me, to your knowledge, then if we were to select a person, we would go to the Personnel Department of the City of Holyoke and say, this is the Community Preservation Committee, we'd like to hire such and such a person, and leave it in their basket, and they would have to post it, they would have to follow those regulations you're
Well,
referring to.
They could do the posting for you, but clearly you want to do the interviewing, so.
Oh, yeah, no, I
But
mean,
they could make sure that the law is followed in terms of posting, yes.
in the Community
Yeah.
Preservation Act,
Yeah,
hiring is also congruent with our selection.
well, you have to follow state law, that's all. And federal
Okay.
law.
Any other questions for Bellamy? By the way, this is Bellamy Schmidt, our auditor, acting auditor at the present
please.
time. So that's, sorry.
Set me free.
So, okay, well, thank you very much,
Okay.
Bellamy. I
Happy to come
appreciate
back
it.
again if
Oh,
we need
yeah,
to do
we
this.
will.
So don't worry about that.
Great, thank you.
It's easy for me to come.
Okay,
I just walk across the alley.
okay, great. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Appreciate that. Okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, I believe, is Roberta. And we want to make sure you get home in time before the storm starts. I don't know what time it's coming, but,
It sounds as though it's not starting until late, so I can
good.
easily get home.
oh, good.
But thank you. There were three things that I wanted to follow up with you about this week. The first is the survey. Did you send out to everybody a
Yes.
copy of the survey? So I wanted to see if you had any feedback on the survey.
I thought it was great. I took
Well
the
done.
survey. Yeah, you did a good job, as far as I'm concerned, but like to hear from everybody, did you take the survey just for the heck of it, just to see? It only took a few minutes, so I was very happy with that, and it was easy to follow and easy to fill out and quick. Why don't you come up and sit with us now?
If you haven't had a chance to see it, I did bring a few printouts.
Madam Chairman, are you seeking this evening for us to approve this as
I
a
would like
published
to,
item?
yes. It's everyone, this is Daphne Board. She was very involved in the enacting of the CPA ballot question, and now she's on the Preservation Trust, which I have some questions about
I'm
that,
actually
so.
not on the preservation.
Oh, you're not on it? Oh, I thought you were.
No, sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. That's all right.
Can I go back to the administrative, the 5%? I just had like one comment about like perhaps hiring somebody at 25,000 or whatever.
Oh, no, we weren't saying
Or
at.
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
Within
using-
that
Yeah.
25,000.
I mean, I guess what I'd like to see, and I'm just speaking as like a person, is some amount of that administrative fund reserved for like if we have to do studies or, I just think that like spending the entire amount on
Oh, no, we're not gonna do
staff
that.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my one.
Some other things that come out of that administrative amount is coalition dues. Highly recommended that you join the coalition. They have dues on a sliding scale, so I don't know what the dues would be for Holyoke, depending on what your revenue is. But their technical support is invaluable, especially if you have limited staff capacity for the amount of staff time that you can pay for.
I think it would be under 2,000 a year from what I was.
Good.
So, yeah.
Madam Chairman, that's a good idea. Do you
Mm-hmm.
folks want to, this evening, are you seeking for us to join the coalition?
Not tonight, because we don't have the funds. We don't
Well,
have
I
any
mean,
money.
That's true.
Yeah, and plus
Besides that.
this is the first we hear of it. I didn't even know
Okay.
about that, so,
And
yeah.
you may need to fill out a requisition and have it approved.
I will have to do that. If the committee approves of it, I would have to. Well, actually, Andrew, our financial person here, our treasurer, I would assume be our liaison between our committee and the purchasing department.
Happy to.
Yeah.
Robert, is that an annual dues you pay?
Yeah.
And it's roughly 2,000,
I think it's like $1,600 it would be in our case from the estimates for this year.
How does their year run, fiscal or calendar?
Calendar year.
Calendar year, so, okay.
What would the benefits of joining be that they help with?
They help you to determine whether proposals are eligible or not eligible. They can help you to develop grant agreements so that, to ensure that everything that you're doing is legally. They are the most up-to-date on legal decisions that have been made regarding the types of programs that can be eligible. and all different ways of administering. They are the first call that you want to make to ask whether, can we do this? Or how do we do this?
I'm already on their mailing list, and there's been at least 3 different legislative. It is good to stay up in tune too.
Great.
I mean, Madam Chairman, I couldn't agree with Roberta's more. I'd like, if it's to your will and the will of the board, that we, when we do have some money, to join, to be part of this organization and pay our annual dues, because as she pointed out, with limited folks, it's nice to be able to pick up a phone or an email and pose a technical question on a specific application and get it the horse's mouth to get a real expert, since we can't afford our own.
Right, exactly. Well, we will have to eventually get our own person who probably will, would that person be the one who would be in touch with the coalition more than ourselves?
Yeah, probably.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so that would be good.
And, so, I mean, what you may want to do, I think, you know, it's too early for you to do this right now, is to look at what the types of expenses that you're going to have, the coalition dues, as Daphne suggested, leave some money aside in case you need to do some due diligence on some projects that you may be looking at, and to look at the pay rate that you may want to pay and the number of hours that you would like to be able to hire a person for, and put all of that together, perhaps develop a budget for how you'd like to use your administrative funds before you start looking at hiring an administrative person.
Right, right.
You
yes.
may work with the mayor's office, or you may decide that you'd prefer to work independently to figure out where to place the position in City Hall and whose hours to hire, whether you hire somebody who's not already in City Hall, or somebody who's currently part-time in City Hall and add more hours to their time. Those are decisions that you need to make, but I think that you're not ready yet to make those decisions. It's something that you need to put on your agenda over the next couple of months.
Right, right. Okay, great.
Development of an administrative expense budget.
Yeah. And one of the criteria that you may put into your application is that you have a preference for proponents who have already done due diligence and can demonstrate that their projects are ready to go. Because your administrative funding is very limited, and you're taking on the due diligence to determine whether a project is eligible or whether it's ready, feasible, can be more expensive than you can manage. So if they put that, make that investment up front in their project application, it's helpful to you.
Exactly, yes. And we, you know, this is what we don't know. What can we ask from them? What are we responsible for to the project ourselves? And, you know, what can we expect from them so that we don't have to do stuff that we...
Well, you're responsible to ensure that the project complies with CPA requirements.
Right.
And I think it's on them to demonstrate that to you,
Okay.
as well as that their project is feasible and they have the capacity to carry it out.
Okay, so back to the survey. Yes.
So if there's any input, feedback on suggested changes to the survey?
Did you have a chance to look at the survey? Yeah.
I looked at it.
Yeah. Okay, is everybody ready to vote on that, one way or the other?
You have a comment?
I'm always gonna have a comment about something, but under, when it's talking about affordable housing, I really think we should add moderate income under CPA funds should be used to help low income, low to moderate.
Okay.
I guess because this just came up during the campaign a lot, you know, and I think the term low-income housing is a real turnoff for a lot of people. And I think it would be really great, because I see surveys like this as like partially meant to, okay, gather information, but they're also like giving information, right? And so I think if we give people more information about that, you know, affordable housing does include moderate income, I think that's a better thing overall. Because I think a lot of people in Holyoke, the thing that turned them off about CPA was, oh, this is just gonna be more low-income housing. And I'm not in any way saying we don't need better low-income housing or more, but I think we also just have no moderate income housing, none whatsoever. So that's my comment.
Right, just to make sure, under the chapter affordable housing, number 1, CPA funds, as it now states, CPA funds should be used to help low-income households access to affordable housing. You like to use the CPA funds should be used to help low-income, comma, moderate households access?
Well, it could be low to moderate income, or the moderate income could just be inserted somewhere else, either in another question, or, I mean, if you wanted to really just find out if people wanted to use it for low-income housing or for moderate income housing, I mean, that's sort of a distinction in and of itself. I don't know how long you want to make the survey, but I'm just
No,
saying,
I think
like,
just
that,
inserting that word, you know, CPA funds should be used to help low-income to moderate income households access affordable housing.
yeah, I think
That pretty much
that's,
sums it up.
yeah.
We don't have to
Where
retype
are
it.
you looking at that?
Under the,
1A, or just one?
under the chapter, affordable housing, it's on the second page, at the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
The first, under 1, CPA funds, it now states CPA funds should be used to help low-income households access to affordable housing. I think the point is well taken. It should be CPA, well, if it's the will of the board, CPA funds should be used to help low-income to moderate-income households access to affordable housing. Yeah, it's under
Well,
1.
the only thing is, A and B, they don't relate to that, do they? I mean,
A is specifically most likely for low-income households, the
Right.
temporary rental assistance. However, down payment assistance for first-time home buyers could be a program
be.
that goes up to 100% of area median income.
right,
So that could apply. And
Okay.
also, as Daphne pointed out, just inserting the word moderate in there is going to register in people's minds, even if it's not applicable to everything below it, because then in the later areas where we talk about affordable housing, we don't define it. And the affordable housing can be targeted to moderate income households. So I think it's a good subliminal plant to put it in there.
okay, all right, good.
Well, Madam Chairman, if it's the will of the board, I'd like to make that change if the board agrees.
Make that motion, yeah.
I make a motion that we, under the chapter of affordable housing, we change the wording to now state under number 1, CPA funds should be used to help low-income to moderate-income households access to affordable housing.
Okay, is there a second?
I second it.
Any other discussion? Okay, we're making change to the survey. Ryan, do we need to do a voice vote on that?
I would say so.
Yeah, okay, so,
All in favor?
no, boy, he wants us to say the names, right?
Yeah, sure,
That-
that way, just in case somebody had a little look back, they would know.
Okay.
Exactly who was, you know.
Okay, all right, Libby? Yes, Margot?
Yes,
Andrew?
yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And Kip? And myself, yes. So unanimous for that change. Okay, anything else?
A motion to add moderate and then to accept the language.
No, just to make that change. There, in case there's any other changes, and then we'll, yeah, a little bit, but that's okay. Anything else in there? that-
Could I ask a question?
Yes,
Just when I was reading them, I wondered, well, how did City Hall become A and Armory and like, do these, you know, I was surprised, I guess, to see, I don't know, merry-go-round. Like, do these come from some other comprehensive list?
From all of the stakeholder outreach that I've been doing.
So this is a
So these
result
are
of
the stakeholder outreach.
Got it.
So, and reading plans, talking to people. The order in which they appear is random. You know, it was the order in which it popped into my head to put it on the list. So if you want to rearrange it, there's no, I have no commitment to exactly how they appear.
I just recognize that unless people have some other cause in mind, you know, we've narrowed their selection to 3 or 4, and that's great, because it's based on survey work that was done.
And there is a space for other, so that if they have some ideas, and maybe there should be more room for other in case they have more than one idea, or is, yeah.
And the wording of the question above that is, please indicate your response to each of the following goals and project examples. So you're not going to be carrying out these projects.
Yeah,
These are
that doesn't
just-
mean we have to do those, yeah.
Right, and you're dependent on somebody proposing to do those projects.
Exactly, yeah.
Does the city own the train station?
Publicly owned, I could correct that.
That would be the commission, the commissioners, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, that's just,
If it's a technicality that people will get hung up on, I can make it publicly owned instead of city-owned.
Or city/public.
yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have to make a motion to make that
I
change?
think in the end, you could make a motion to accept it with
Yeah.
edits as discussed.
With the discussed changes, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right, anything else? All right, so now let's vote on the survey itself. Do I hear a motion to accept the survey with the proposed changes?
Second.
Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, Libby? Aye. Marco? Aye. Andrew? Mike?
Yes.
Kip? Yes. And myself, yes. Elaine, yes. Okay, thank you very much. So as soon as we get that back, I will print it out and I will bring it over to the mayor's office to have copies made. And we wanted how many copies? I have no idea how many copies.
Okay, so let's talk about that. First of all, can this be translated into Spanish? And can we be able, if so, you had talked last week, Libby, about, I forget who else in the committee had,
Rosemary.
I think it's
Rosemary.
Rosemary, right?
Rosemary.
She has a program in her computer that translates. In all my translation, I just do it myself.
Yeah.
I don't have a program.
so if you are able to do that, okay,
I can
or
either
work
do
with
it or work
Rosemary.
with
Rosemary. I think she's available online. Oh, well, no, we only have her work email now that I think about it.
Is she no longer part of the?
She is, but she's on vacation.
Oh, she's on vacation.
Yeah,
right.
she's gone away for,
So then
Couple
it would be
weeks.
on you, I guess, if you're able to do that. So my goal is that this is ready to go live on the 23rd. That's next Friday, I believe. So if I had the translation by the 20th, I think that's next Tuesday, that gives a week and a day to do it, then I could reformat it so that it's ready to print. And we can, when we put it online, the formatting doesn't matter, but on print, it really matters. You can see how we got it to fit exactly. So I would try to do that again to see if I can get it without compromising people's ability to read it, to be able to get it to fit neatly in so many pages.
So you would just make this change that we just voted on?
Yeah,
and
so
then
I'll send
it
that,
in the-
yeah, I can send you the edited version, and then, if, you know, you can take a week to translate it, send it back to me, then I will give you the, final copy ready to print, and have it ready to go online on the 23rd. So, then you'll be able to have it to the mayor's office. How many copies to print, I would say, depends on which locations you're going to be bringing it to. Obvious locations are the library and the senior center. And then perhaps you want to look around at other organizations that would be good dropping places to have it available in print. That might be the Housing Authority, organizations that people are frequenting in the downtown. Your stakeholders may be willing to have they might print their own copies and have them available in their organizations for people. I can send a letter to them suggesting that they do that when we're ready to go live. But you tell me where you'd like to put it, and then think about how many copies in each location, and then keep an eye on it. If they run out, give them more.
I know some organizations will probably be able to do copies. Copies initially, I'm not sure if it should be like 20 in each place, just to start, I mean,
I was thinking 100.
on each place.
Yes. I was thinking 100.
Maybe
and then-
20 Spanish and 100 English might be a good starting.
Yeah, depending on which
Where will
place.
we initially make our copies now? Like, who's gonna make the copies first? now?
From the mayor's
Oh,
office.
from the mayor's office, okay.
Sorry, I'm moving back. The street light just came
Yeah,
on.
it worked, yeah.
Shining in my eyes.
Yeah, we're gonna have to move in a few minutes anyway, so.
Madam
let's-
Chairman, when do you want this done by?
She's going to send me the final copies on the 23rd, and I'm gonna bring it to the mayor's office. And I don't know how long it will take them to get the copies done. I'll find out when I bring them.
Okay, and then when they are done,
I'll be able
do we distribute them as
Yes,
board members?
we'll all take some out
Take
to wherever.
sites
Yes,
to drop them
yes,
off?
Yes,
And they have where to return it to on this, so they can either, they can drop it off or send it in the mail to City Hall.
Yeah, when I bring the copy, originals to be copied, I'll ask the mayor's office if people can drop them off there. Or do you want to take them, Ryan? Well, you're kind of in there, so it would probably be better with an office, either city clerk's office or mayor's office.
Maybe there is room.
Well, I don't want them to bring it to an empty office. I want it to be somebody who's
Do
there.
you have a mailbox, or could you make a collection box that people will know to drop it off if they drop it here?
Sure, we have a mailbox, we have a purchasing department, we have a mailbox, so if they're not.
So, I mean, this is room 10, okay. That's, I think for people who've never been inside of City Hall before, a room number is the easiest, so room 10.
And so the places like the library and senior center, can they be collection sites as well, like people filling them out right there? Just be one of,
That would be great if they can be. So what you could do is to create collection boxes, put a label on it and say, return your surveys here. And then you'll need a committee member or a volunteer to collect those on a regular basis. And also committee members to take those and manually enter them on the, on SurveyMonkey. So I'll send a link to all of you so that you can enter those manually. It takes 5 minutes to fill this out. It takes 3 minutes or less to actually do the manual entry.
The format you're referring to is already going to be there, so if I had 25 surveys, I go to that site, I fill it in, answer the questions, and
Yeah.
press a button, and it goes. And collectively, you get the results.
Yes. Yeah. So actually, I'll send you the English version before the 23rd, the Spanish version by the 23rd.
Okay.
So that you could get the English out on the 23rd, if you were so inclined, or any time after. In the announcement, it says that the survey's available throughout the month of April. But it won't hurt to start a little early and leave a little extra time.
Okay. Anything else on the survey?
Let me just go through my checklist. It can be live. So who will, so it's just making sure that between you, you know who has the responsibility to see that it gets printed and dropped off in the collection locations.
I'll make sure it gets printed,
Okay.
and they'll let me know when it's ready, and I'll bring them to our next meeting, and we'll disperse them, decide where we're gonna go with them and how many,
So,
and find out when we bring them, if they can also collect them, and,
right, good idea.
yeah.
Just get a shoebox. Ask them if they have a shoebox
Yeah,
and leave it in the
I,
shoebox.
Leave a
I have a
shoebox.
few Baker boxes I can donate to the cause, it's all right, for financial files.
Okay, great.
That would be great. Is it time that you need to relocate? This would be a good.
Yes.
A good.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanna finish up though on the survey, are we all
On the
done?
survey, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I
That's
just
good.
had one comment on
Oh,
the
sure.
survey, and it's a little tricky, but, in terms of, like, if you wanted to get them into schools, to like, get them into everybody's backpacks, I think that's a pretty simple process, but in terms of getting them back, I don't know, I think that's probably not a good process, but if there's some flyer going out to advertise.
We'll talk about that next.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Advertising
Okay.
is
All right.
next on my agenda. Yeah.
Never mind then.
You're one of my favorite. You're always my favorite.